Do you do the thing where you first do stupid things and so you don't, because I do that.
Oh, I didn't do that.
And then I cut it. Hi Booktube, it's Sina and I am here with Bob.
Hello.
The Bookerer. I'm in London and Bob kindly offered to like host me here for a few nights. And yeah, I've bought far too many books and I thought we'll do a little video, actually not about what books I bought, but about what we've been reading, because why not have two people talk to each other in front of a camera?
There we go.
Right, so I think you should start.
I should start. So,
what's your last read?
My last read. So that was The Bread the Devil Knead by Lisa Allen-Agostini. I think I've got that the right way around. Agostini Allen. Yeah, which was on the Women's Prize shortlist and is quite a difficult book in many ways. It's, you know, it deals a lot with abuse and with kind of somebody leaving a difficult relationship, but is also just a really interesting and really warm book in some other ways as well. So yeah, I really enjoyed. I mean, enjoy feels like the wrong word for a book that's that dark, but like I always enjoyed the experience of reading it. So yeah, that's what I read last. Yeah.
So was that one of the better ones from the Women's Prize, or what do you...
I mean, like overall, like mostly enjoying the shortlist. And this, I think, is probably a good contender for it. I think it's sort of very... Like I will say, at times there is a little bit of a feeling of like, you can kind of see that the author's sort of... You can see the author's hand a little bit and like, and now there's this other thing and it's a bit of a coincidence. But at the same time, I'm quite happy to overlook it. It's quite a fun book. Well, fun again, not the right word. It's an interesting book, and I think it's well worth checking out.
Right. Okay. Maybe I will. This was one of the few ones that actually kind of I might have a look, but I don't even know what's on the shortlist. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Is there anything that I've read? What is the shortlist? Do you remember?
Yeah, Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. Alicia Fack's Island of Missing Trees. The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. That book. Sorrow and Bliss.
Oh, that's the one I read.
And oh gosh, how do I always forget one of them? And the Mystery Sixth book that I have entirely blanked on, despite no doubt having read this really recently.
Maybe we can add it in.
when I eventually remember.
Yeah. But I don't know, so I've only read Sorrow and Bliss sometime last year.
Yeah.
Kind of liked it though.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure in the beginning, but I did kind of warm up to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know, should I do the last read?
Yeah.
Maybe, yeah. So I've been in a bit of a reading slump. So this, even though it's such a tiny thing, was like an achievement. I read Psychros by Charlene Elsby. I think, I know I saw this on Fraser's channel. Fraser, what is the name? Springboard Thought. But is it not Fraser something?
Fraser Simon's Springboard Thought.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm very rusty. Yeah. And he talked about this very enticingly. It is very weird. It's a really, really tiny thing, and I still took like 2 weeks to read it. So what we have is a woman who's like a first person narrator, and her partner has committed suicide. Actually, I don't like that phrase. Committed suicide. Anyway, so he took his life.
Yeah.
Killed himself. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so we're in her mind and how she deals with the aftermath of that. And it starts out incredibly entertainingly. That sounds weird. I found it very entertaining because she has such a wry voice. She doesn't sound like the kind of person I would want to be friends with, but she does make very interesting and kind of funny observations about how we interact and how we, certain social norms and what is expected of you and blah, 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 and how she basically seems like this outsider who needs to actively think through all of these norms in order to adhere and not stick out like a sore thumb, sort of thing. So that's really funny. But then, and this is no spoiler, it basically, the way she deals with this situation is having more and more bizarre sexual encounters that also end up, getting more and more violent.
Right.
And it kind of really goes off the rails towards the end. I mean, what are we talking? The end towards maybe it's probably a third at least of the book or more. Not for everyone certainly, but I really enjoyed it.
Nice.
I guess it's a bit of a, I don't know, depicting psychosis or something along those lines.
Right. Nice.
It was an interesting read.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Have you read Boy Parts by Eliza Clark?
No.
It's just because when you were talking about that, like, sort of sex tipping into violence and sort of tipping into psychosis, that book does quite a lot of that in a really interesting way. Like, not an easy read.
No.
Like, it's not like la 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 la, and then
Sex,
everyone
violence,
dies.
and blood and gore. And,
But that and I think, was it New Animals by Ella Baxter, I want to say? Like, they sort of toe this really interesting line between sort of characters who, like, go, like, that kind of, like, line between sex and violence and sort of using that as a way of dealing with something else. It's really good. Yeah.
No, I've never heard of that one actually.
Cool.
I mean, Boy Parts I've heard of.
Yeah.
I don't know what.
New Animals came out earlier this year, I think.
Is Boy Parts a novel or is it?
It's a novel,
stories?
yeah.
Okay.
It's really good.
Was that by that same publisher that did, what's it called? A Trip?
Oh, I don't know actually. I don't know what the publisher is for that one. It's a fairly small press, I think. So it might well
anyway,
be.
I'll have a look.
Anyway.
Maybe I'll confirm
or
deny later on. Okay. So what are you currently reading then?
So
By the way, I'll give this back to you because I'm now lending it to you.
Thank you. This is the official ceremony of sort of the hand over the book. We should do like a little posed picture, like those like all of those sort of super weird like ceremony pictures you get where someone's like handing over a giant check
and you have to do the yeah.
Anyway, so my current reads and kind of what I'm reading next are kind of linked, so I might sort of introduce a bit of both of them. I realised the 6th book on the shortlist as well is Ruth Ozeki's Book of Form and Emptiness.
That one I do want to read.
And one of the other books on that list is Louise Erdrich's The Sentence, which I've started a little bit of, but is largely dealing a lot with somebody who had quite a troubled life and then goes and works as a bookseller. And so there are quite a lot of book recommendations sort of littered through, and I think right at the back of the book there's a whole section of like, here is this character's reading list on Indigenous people, here's this character's reading list on comfort reading or whatever.
Ooh,
so kind of interesting, but like, I don't know, I sometimes find like name dropping other books in books a bit, I don't know how to describe it, it's a bit kind of like, sometimes you almost feel like you have to have read all of them to get the reference of it.
Well,
and sometimes I have an issue with that because there are like so many name drops, like probably
Well, and they're doing it all overtly, right? It's like, okay, so and so character is reading Virginia Woolf.
I'll try and find an example, but and so sort of as a result, here we go.
Is that?
I told Pollux about the book club of cardigan-wearing women with sensible haircuts who had bought Marlon James's Black Leopard, Red Wolf and were determined to exist in its aura of fever dream storytelling. And that's not too bad, but then there are a few ones where it kind of comes up a lot.
What is it? Cardigan wearing what?
So I read that a bit too quickly, but cardigan-wearing women with sensible haircuts.
Fantastic.
Which is the aesthetic I aspire to. So anyway, this book, I'm kind of rambling a bit, but sort of largely deals with that, and there's sort of quite a few interesting things so far. I'm only about 80 pages in, sort of weaving in bits around like Indigenous people and and sort of particularly, it's kind of an interesting mishmash of a book. I'm kind of intrigued to see how it threads together a bit later. But yeah, so that's what I'm reading at the moment.
Question: do you think so? Apart from the feeling like you've got to have read all of those other books to understand it, I don't know. Do you think it's like a bit of sometimes like a lazy way of characterization? Like, obviously you have to have read, or at least you must know these sort of references, and then that's like, this is this bookish person who's really intellectual and blah blah. Or
I think that's my thing with it, because I don't think, because in that line, for example, there's no need to understand what that book is to get the reference. Like, because they then, Louise Erdrich then says something along the lines of like being in this like universe or whatever. But I think it's just, there were a few bits later where it's like quite a few books in a row, and I think for me, I sort of found there'd like to be almost this expectation that I'd be like, right, yes, so just like the characters in these two books. And like, I don't think it's like I think you could probably enjoy this book having read none of them. And so far, I think I've read one book that's been referenced.
Wow.
Which is Olga Tokarczuk, but like Drive Your Plow over the Phones of a Head.
I haven't read that. I missed that.
But yeah, so it's kind of, I don't know. I don't think she's sort of wielding it too heavily over but I've definitely read other books where the sort of author is sort of like, well, just like in, and you're like, no, I don't know what that is. And even if I do, I probably don't remember it, because I barely remember anything. But
it's interesting. I mean, I like it when it's done in a way where it adds another layer if you know it, but it wouldn't really feel detrimental to your enjoyment of the story, even if you're like missing that layer, right? But then usually that's not often with overt references. It's more like, like, I don't know, James Joyce and all this stuff, like, obviously I haven't read everything that he's referencing, because who has the time? But every so often you'll pick one up and you're like, oh yeah, okay, I'm familiar with that, and that's kind of, I like that.
Work without it. But I mean, all of it, that's not to malign this book. Like, this feels, I'm enjoying this. And the writing style, I've never read anything of Erdrich before. Have you?
No, but I have one lined up to buddy read with Kelly.
Nice.
From books I'm not reading, but like, an older one. What was it? The Painted Drum.
Okay, yes. But no, I'm really liking her style. Like, Louise Erdrich is like a very like precise and descriptive kind of style, which I'm really enjoying.
Cool.
Yeah, that's not cool.
Interesting. Speaking of, this character's reading list. I just recently read Lost Children Archive.
Yeah.
And that kind of reminded me. But I mean, I like that in there. Okay, I think there is a list at the end somewhere, but also half of it is obviously embedded in the story, because it's these boxes, right? And the boxes of contents. And there, I felt like a lot of it is quite niche. Like a lot of the non-fiction that the father is reading, for example. And like, I mean, I don't know what he's reading half the time, but I feel like even just reading the titles and, the sort of his academic interests and stuff is enough to give me this sort of idea, okay, this is what he's really obsessed about. I don't need to actually know this text. And then others where you're more like, okay, I have heard of this reference at least. And there I feel like it's well done. I feel like it's
it's really well done.
Handled really well and not too over the top. I don't know.
I agree. Yeah, I love that book. It can be difficult to do. It requires a fairly light touch, I think. It can't be too heavy-handed, but I don't think that's what Louise Erdrich is going for. Like, the character works in a bookshop, like, it makes sense in her world, right?
Yeah. But isn't it also such a cliche that like so many books, because people who write books love books, and then let's put them into. But I mean, they also sell really well because people who read books like to read about.
And there's a fun little list at the end. Like, it is sort of like, hang on, I'll find some of the headings of these. There's like ghost managing book list, short perfect novels, Indigenous lives, Indigenous poetry,
what is ghost
sublime
managing?
books. That's a good point. I don't actually know.
What does that refer to?
Maybe I'm not
it
far
has
enough.
Colson Whitehead on there.
It does. Maybe I'm not far enough in the book to really know.
Can I have a look?
Yeah.
Is it like stuff you can easily recommend to a lot of people?
Probably.
Because look, I mean, I don't know, but look, there's like No, I think it does have to do something with ghosts, actually.
Right.
Because look, it's got Beloved.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
got...
Regeneration by Pat Barker.
Lincoln in the Bardo. Yeah. Interesting.
Anyway, that's a little side.
Sorry, this is taking a long time. But it's interesting. I wonder, you need to tell me later if that makes more
I am
sense.
enjoying it. I think I will overall really enjoy this book, especially by the end. But
Yeah.
Interesting.
So my current read is The Membranes by Ta-wei. I should know better. It's a Taiwanese author.
Yes.
But I don't know because it's not got any of the pronunciation
Yeah.
hints. Maybe it's I don't know. Anyway, translated by Larissa Heinrich. Sounds so German.
Very German.
Well, maybe she is German. Anyway, so this is from Taiwan. It was only translated last year? Did it come out last year?
Something like that. It's fairly.
But it was originally from the 90s, I think.
Mm.
Is it the 90s? Yes, 1996. So it took their sweet time, I guess. Unfortunately, I'm actually not allowed, or maybe I am. Will I post this thing before the Booktube Prize?
Oh, yes.
So so this is one of the books that's on the Booktube Prize group list that I'm reading because I signed up for translated fiction, and luckily Bob was kind enough to lend this to me, and I thought I can squeeze this in before the end. No, I think I'll just publish it after that was on, and then I can talk about it. So I'm not very far in. I'm only 32 pages in, although he's only 150 or something.
Like that. Yeah, it's
and so far I'm really enjoying it. It is rather odd. Like I would call it. What is it? What would you call it? Post-environmental disaster sci-fi situation.
And in some ways I find that really, I mean obviously it's written in the 90s, but I find that kind of stuff quite uncomfortable to read just because I'm like, it's not too far away, it's a possibility. It's a thing. So I think it does a lot with kind of futurism of,
Yeah.
It's kind of cool.
It's kind of cool, yeah. People are living under this. Is that a spoiler? No, it's not. Not really. People are living in the ocean under this. Yeah, because the sun is too damaging for people to live on Earth. And I love the beginning of it, just how the characters introduced, about this sort of how she contemplates whether she's ever really capable of perceiving something like real, because she seems like she's always one step removed because there's a membrane separating her from the rest of her life or things outside of her body. I don't know, it's very interesting, but obviously I can't talk too much about it because I don't know. What I will say is, because I'm not going to post this before, this is so far the best I've read of the group, because the group was, not great. Right. The last two ones I read was like, I don't know which one I hate more. Not hate, but dislike. No, but it was an active dislike, which is normally not, for me it's normally a, it's not for me.
Yeah. That's quite rare for me that I actively dislike something as well.
So there were like 2 2-star reads in it, and then another 3-star, which, anyway, let's not go into it. So far, this is the highlight, and I feel like it's probably gonna stay that way. And also, of course, I'm super interested in reading something from Taiwan, because as a partially Taiwanese person, I'm woefully underread in that regard. In fairness, I'm not sure how much is translated from there.
Really not great. Nice.
So looking forward to reading more of it on the train soon.
Yeah.
What is your next read?
My next read is Mona by... Now, I looked this up online to try and find the pronunciation of her surname. So, Pola, I don't know if the X in this name is like a her, like Oaxaca, or like an English X sound. So I'm going to go for what I've heard on an interview, which is somebody calling her Pola Oloixarac, something like that. I'm going to go with that. But I'm almost definitely wrong. Please do correct me. And this, I've started reading a little bit of this, and it is incredibly funny so far. Essentially, the setup is there is a woman, like a writer who has been nominated for a really big literary prize, sort of something along the lines of the Nobel, but where all the authors kind of converge, and like, you know, they all kind of come. The finalists are announced, and then there's this big ceremony, and they win $200,000 or whatever, and so it's her and these other authors basically at this big event where you know, everybody's sort of trying to be. It's sort of almost like a peek behind the curtain of like the literary elite, right? Of sort of, so far in the bit I've read, there are just sort of like, there's this one character who, you know, like one author who's so like up himself and is like, oh yes, I'm all that, okay. And then these other characters sort of just like, this man, who is he? What is he doing? Like other authors who just don't care whether they win or not. They're like, I'm just here. This is a fun little event. And then some who are very, very serious. And so it just feels like a really fun, like I'm loving this so far. I think this will almost definitely be a 5-star read if it keeps up the kind of same pace. But yeah, it's just very like, very smart, very sarcastic. Like, I think like whip smart is kind of the phrase that keeps on coming to mind for this book. Is like very sharp observations of things. So yeah, really, really loving this. And I think like the whole don't judge a book by its cover. Genuinely, like so much of the time I've been like, the main reason I wanted to pick this up is like, I just love this cover.
Yeah, the cover is very, very alluring.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So yeah, there we go.
But yeah, so that, because that has been over Bookstagram.
Yes.
So much, like last year already. So since last year I already had it on my TBR, but I never picked it up. And then now, has it been on some prize list?
I have no idea.
Okay.
Not that I've seen, but
no, because of all of a sudden, then I mean, not that I've been really awful with watching BookTube as well, but it felt like now there's also lots of BookTubers working on this. Whereas before I saw it mainly on Bookstagram with people.
Right.
Of course, there's people who do both, but that was more like people who are only on there.
Gotcha.
And maybe it was just people that I was following, like with that tiny bubble that everyone was talking about, like you must read. And yeah, I think at some point I do want to pick it up for sure.
Nice.
It sounds like a reader's kind of book.
Yeah.
Or writer's book, or what?
Which is funny because it pokes fun at that as well. Like there's
of course.
There's an author
no?
There's an author in here who someone calls like a writer's writer, and then this Icelandic man who then blanks the person who told him that, and like refuses to talk to him for having been seen as a writer's writer. Like so, it's full of that kind of like, kind of joking about the kind of the idea of a literary elite. Like ultimately, these are all people who, like, you know, eat and drink and go to the toilet, and you know,
of course,
you know, it's sort of, you know, and so it's kind of poking fun in a really great way. I think so. I'm loving this. This is so clever. She's from Argentina, and it sort of has this wonderful kind of outsider's perspective in that sense of like her being, you know, like an Argentine at this event where, you know, lots of European authors are sort of talking about like, oh, there's no war in Europe, and you know, people from like Eastern Europe there are like, hang on, sorry, what?
Excuse me, that's a very limited. Nowadays, we're even.
So it's also like playing along with that idea of sort of global north versus global south and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, really, really fun. It's doing quite a lot in a short amount of space so far. So
interesting.
Yeah, I'm really loving it.
I think we're running out of space. Anyway, we'll go on though. So I forgot another one that I'm trying to read is The Public Burning by Robert Coover, which is a buddy read with Courtney Ferreter and Mark Nash. Well, it is an aspirational buddy read because I'm only this far, but I think I should be somewhere around here. It's very dense. I read some of these, some passages in like a class, and I was very intrigued by it. But then reading this kind of writing on, 500 plus pages is not the same. It's rather difficult. It's quite dense. Right. The print is really small.
Oh, it is actually.
And he's referencing so much stuff because Coover was doing this sort of, not cut up, but I guess a variation of cut up technique where he's like, I think he was talking about the author as a text processing machine. So there's shit tons of references, but they're not overt. And yeah, I guess you can read it without that, but it just makes for very like slow reading.
Technical difficulties, running out of space and time. Anyway, what were we talking about?
You were just talking about
Robert Coover.
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm trying to read it, but it's very slow going, so I don't know if I'll catch up or not, which seems to be a thing with my buddy reads. I'm failing them all, almost most. Future read? No, did you already talk about your future read?
Yeah, so that was Mona.
That is Mona.
Mona was my future read, but it's sort of I'm both reading it at the moment and kind of it's a future read. It's a bit of a
okay.
It was due to be a future read, but then I started it today, so
okay. So my next read, I mean, it's really difficult to decide because I've bought so many books and I've been given several books by you and then also by Mark because I met Mark. And the next one that I've just randomly pulled out because it's so small is Unica Zürn's The Trumpets of Jericho. I read one of her books, which was Dark Spring, read it in German because she was a German author, but I couldn't find this in German. So Mark lent this to me, and because it's so tiny, I kind of have this hope that I might be able to finish it and ship it back to him. So that's why it's the next one. Yeah. I don't think I have anything to say about this apart from she was like a surrealist artist, painter, and also writer. The one I read is quite dark, the Dark Spring, and this one apparently will probably be no less dark because I think this is about, childbirth, but not in the way that some people describe it with rose-colored lenses. And I'm just expecting it to be quite...
Yeah, it sounds like it would be. Yeah.
I don't know if harrowing is the right one, but I'm sure it won't be like...
Yeah.
It won't be an easy one, but it's only 50 pages.
Yes.
So anyway, this one says, wait, I like this part. It says, arguably Zürn's most extreme experiment in prose and never before translated into English, this novella dramatizes the frontiers of the body, its defensive walls, as well as its cavities and thresholds. Nice. Animating a harrowing and painfully honest depiction of motherhood as a breakdown in the distinction between self and other, transposed into the language of darkest fairy tales.
Wow.
That sounds fantastic.
It does sound really good, actually, yeah.
But, yeah, you must be in the mood.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I kind of am. Anyway, so this is one of my hopeful future reads. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll get tempted by a different one in the meantime, because there's so many now around me that I now need to pack.
Yes.
Right. I think that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I hope we can do it again sometime.
Yes. Come on down to London and...
You should come to Stuttgart.
I
mean, not that it's the cultural hub, but...
Yeah.
But there would be nice things I could take you to,
yes,
that might not be related to literature. Most likely not.
Nice.
Yeah. Thanks very much for having me here.
My pleasure.
And thank you guys for listening to all this rambling. If there's anybody still left who still watches anything, or
sounding
that I put out.
apocalyptic. Yeah.
No, I meant because I've just been not engaging for ages. But yeah, hopefully maybe I'll be back more regularly. Who knows? I'll try. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Anyway, do I say something or do you say something?
You can start.
Right. Okay. I'm going to cut this, I think.